Now, sports gamblers, Scott Spreitzer, one of the leaders and most trusted names in the country. Nobody watches and studies games more than he does. From DocSports.com, here's Scott Spreitzer, exclusively on with Rockin' Minuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620.
All right, let's get to it. We got a big weekend of college football and NFL, and Scott joins us now. How we doing today, Scott? What's happening? You doing all right?
Doing all right, guys. Get ready for some college baskets, among other things.
Yeah, so when do you start handicapping that? I mean, what, October, early October, when do you start forecasting some of these big games?
Yeah, I usually wait till about a month before nowadays. Used to be earlier, but my gosh, every team's got 24 new players, with the transfer portal. So it's kind of like I just wait as long as I can and get a general idea of what players are going where, what teams have stood pat. And then kind of wait till I really dive into it, which is different than I did years ago. And that's just to make sure you got, all the information correct with the transfer portal. And things you did 10 years ago to handicap early college basketball season are basically thrown right out the door because of the transfer portal.
Scott, I just wonder if Coapita at U of A, their opening game against Florida, might have gotten your attention, how well this young man played. And will he be one of the top prop bets coming out of college moving forward?
Oh, definitely. And, I was watching a good chunk of that game. I wasn't involved, so I was kind of just paying attention to some other games. But what they were able to do, I thought was pretty impressive because even though it's early in the season, and you look at that Florida lineup inside on the interior, and Arizona was not intimidated as they shouldn't be with their talent. But I was really surprised at how they were able to put up the kind of points they did in that game just because of the opponent and having to drive against those big bodies inside. And they were just fine, from all over the floor. It's funny, I jumped on them today when the line was 30. Guys, they're now a 33.5-point favorite over Utah Tech. This is one of those sports where I don't mind laying 30 or so early in the season. But, man, the sharp money is just poured in on Arizona tonight.
Easy, Connor, our fine producers, Utah Tech grad, former lineman, easy on there. Would you please?
And our other producer is an Arizona grad.
Yeah, Arizona.
So they got a side bet going.
I forgot to finish my sentence by saying, in all due respect to Utah Tech basketball.
That's good. All right, let's talk about game day. They head to Lubbock, and BYU's there. The grit opposed to the firepower in the Big 12 heavyweight bout there. Texas Tech minus 10.5. That's still the number?
Yeah, 10. A lot of 10s, some 10.5s out there. And, the sharp move came in on Texas Tech, and I happen to agree with it. BYU's good, obviously. But they have lived off of opponents' mistakes in 4 wins this season. They were outgained and out first down, badly outgained, in fact, in the last 2 games by Iowa State and Utah. They gave up 6.7 yards per play in those 2 games. But they finished with a +6 turnover margin in the 2 games combined, and that was really the difference. I mean, Iowa State was up 24-10 at one point and committed 4 turnovers. As far as Tech, man, I mean, this is not a team that beats themselves, so I don't think BYU is going to catch any breaks here. They're undefeated when Baron Morton plays. The only loss was when he was sidelined, and that was a close game right till the very end. 16th through the air, Tech, 29th on the ground, 10th in total yards allowed per game, and average 44 points per game. The defense just as good as the offense. And I keep looking at BYU's freshman quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, who I like, but he's going up against his toughest opponent yet in a toughest situation yet. And the Red Raiders are number 1 against the run, number 36 against the pass, top 10 in total yards allowed per game. I think Tech kind of lays one on him here, guys. And I know that number seems big, but the sharp money's coming in on the Red Raiders. They probably win this game by 17 to 20 points, I would think.
All right, Scott, the second one, number 3, Texas A&M, led by former K-State quarterback, now OC Colin Klein. At number 22, Missouri, A&M minus 6.5. Why do I smell potential upset at Missouri with this bad boy?
Well, we're cooking in the same kitchen because I smell it too. A little bit of an upset here. And we'll see what the Tigers can do. They got their backup, Matt Zollers, at quarterback, getting his first start. He played quite a bit last game when Prabula got injured. 14 of 23, 138 yards and a touchdown against Vandy's top 10 defense. So Zollers, and he, by the way, he was like the 8th ranked quarterback coming out of high school when Missouri was able to get him to come to Columbia. So he's no chump change. We've seen some seasons when undefeated teams are hurt by a November bye week, which was the case for A&M last week. These teams that are rolling along and not losing any games, they don't want to really take a week off in November. It's hurt them over the years. And we have a conference where the home team this year, the SEC, has covered at a 61% clip. I do believe that Mizzou's running back Ahmad Hardy is going to get plenty of touchdowns, over 900 yards rushing this season, and that Tiger defense is top shelf. I think Missouri, at the very least, hangs the number here, and I think they're the play over A&M.
All right, Scott Spreitzer joining us here, DocSports.com, and you can always follow him at Scott Wins on Twitter. All right, the Ducks are flying east. You got Oregon and Iowa, and this is probably, at least for me, one game that I'm struggling with when it comes to betting it. I don't know why. I just, for some reason, I'm liking Iowa, but where are you going? You're the pro.
Yeah, when this line came out last Sunday, I'm sitting there and I'm like, boy, I want to find reasons to bet Iowa. And if you dig, you can. But I'm like, I just can't pull the trigger on the Hawkeyes. Yeah. The defenses in this game are quite similar. Their key metrics, that I use in handicapping includes like explosive rate defense, which is how they've done in holding opponents from long gains. And Oregon and Iowa are both fantastic in that metric. The difference for me, though, and the only reason I can't get on board with Iowa here is the offensive situation. I mean, they're all about the ground game, the Hawkeyes, as usual. 185 yards rushing per game. That's outside the top 40 in college football, and that's their best offensive stat. Passing game's 133rd in yards per contest. And we know they're going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to punt on fourth down no matter where the ball is. It's all about field position. Don't make mistakes. Take advantage of the other team's mistakes under Ferentz, and he's excelled. But, man, Oregon's as balanced as it gets. 240 passing yards and rushing yards per game is basically where they sit. Top 10 in offensive explosiveness. Only 7 teams in the country are worse than Iowa in offensive explosiveness, and I think that's going to be the difference. So what I ended up landing on was like Oregon 27-17, 24-14 in that neighborhood.
How big is style points for Oregon on this one? Because, obviously that Penn State game was big back then, but they did get beat by Indiana by 10. How big is points and scoring and really kind of beating a team that is ranked in the top 25?
For me, I think because, Indiana has shown how good they are, that, and it's a tough loss. And by the way, Iowa played Indiana pretty tough. They held the Hoosiers to 20 at home. But I look at this and I'm thinking they just got to get out of there with a victory, Oregon. The line of 6.5 shows there's enough respect on the Iowa Hawkeyes to where they're not expecting an Oregon blowout anyway. So for me, because of, the expansion of the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, the Ducks just got to get out of there with a win, whether it be by 1 point or 20 points. That's at least how I feel.
Rock thought this would be good therapy for me, so I got this one. K-Who at Arizona, minus 5.5. It just gets in my mouth. It just starts to make me quasi puke. But that being said, U of A minus 5.5. How do you like this?
Well, I'm kind of surprised with Kansas this season and last because I'm a Lance Leipold fan, their coach, and he did kind of resurrect the program. They go 9-4 a couple of years ago. They expected big things last year, and remember before last season, Jalen Daniels was considered a Heisman candidate going into 2024. He's been much better this season because he's not throwing the picks, but the KU defense, my gosh, leaves a lot to be desired. And I know Arizona does more damage through the air than on the ground, but, I was going to talk about this Wildcats ground game against the Kansas run defense. But, guys, I searched everywhere, and I can't find a Kansas run defense. That's how bad it's been, So I think both teams are going to be able to pass, Daniels and Fafita. They've got a combined 41 touchdown passes and 7 picks. So I think we should see some points in this one. The total's climbed a bit. It's up to 57.5. I agree with the movement on the over. I think Arizona wins and covers. I think it'll be like a 38-30 type of affair.
And that makes sense because my Cats put 42 points on that supposed run defense. That was in Lawrence, by the way. So that says a lot in reference to the lack of running because we're not that good this year, if you notice, but we put 42 on those those Jayhawks kind of Lawrence games.
I love it.
All right, Scott, the NFL game, the one game, and that is Brissett versus Darnell. Darnell. And I keep wanting to say Darnell Dockett for the life of me. All right, Seahawks minus 6.5.
Show you how old I am. I thought of Darnell Valentine when you said Darnell. Cardinals, getting 7 here, total 45.5. And Seattle's really going for it as they should. They've got the team to do it. Traded for Rashid Shaheed, as you guys know, early this week, and now they've got that speed burner one of the fastest receivers in the NFL now to pair along with JSN. Cooper Kupp in the slot, although he's questionable this week, Kupp. But JSN was certainly playing extremely well, averaging over 16 yards per reception. And I don't think he gets enough credit for being able to get behind defenses. But now his job's, supposedly even easier. But all this hype this week, guys, on the Seahawks and the public jumping all over it. We had Arizona last week. This team's now 5-3 against the spread. They're 13 points from an 8-0 record. So their losses are coming in close, heartbreaking fashion, a la the Tennessee loss. I like the return of Walter Nolan, Garrett Williams. They come back. They shut down what had been a strong Dallas passing game. They held them to less than 5 yards per pass last week. And remember the first meeting between these two teams? Kyler Murray threw 2 picks in the game, but it was still a 3-point game that was decided on a last-second field goal. And I think Brissett can fare better against Seattle than Kyler Murray did. So, again, I think it's going to be a close, tight Arizona football game, and that makes 7 points worth taking.
Does it make any difference, or will that change, you think, between now and Sunday that Max Melton's out, Mac Wilson Sr.'s out, and also Will Johnson are out, 3 starters on defense?
Yeah, it's not changing the line at all, guys. And it's, it's kind of been sticking there in that 6.5 to 7 range. And, I jumped on it yesterday and had read some of the potential defensive issues. And I thought, it's not changing at all. I'm going to go ahead and play him anyway. And it's almost a little bit more like if you said split this, right down the middle, 100%. I would say it's like a 60% anti-Seattle play and a 40% pro-Arizona play this week. And again, I think it's a situation where Seattle, you're paying a price now because of all the hype and Shaheed coming to Seattle. I made that line 5.5. It's 7. So I got to take it even with the injuries on defense. If it was a left tackle or a quarterback, then I'd be thinking about, staying away from the game.
Scott, good luck. Have a great weekend. Thanks for the time.
All right, guys. Take care.
Scott Spreitzer. Follow him at Scott Wins and DocSports.com. Coming up, another black eye for college hoops, and this one hits home in Tempe. That's next. It's Rocket Minutia, Jimmy B here on ESPN Phoenix 620.